Bon dia, buongiorno, bonjour, guten Morgen. Welcome to the session, Energy Transition, Redefining the Energy Mix and Distribution Systems. My name is Stefanie Beitien. I'm Director of Partnerships in Ecobusiness. And for those of you who don't know Ecobusiness yet, we are a media publication and entirely focused on sustainable development and responsible business. We report about the energy transition, about waste, water, about smart cities and green buildings. So please check out our website. We are based in Singapore. We are focused on Asia Pacific. So I'm kind of representing the Asian voice at this event. Despite the fact that I'm German, I'm freezing here like every Singaporean would do. So I'm very glad to be here, your chair for this session. We have an exciting lineup for you today. In the session, we will deep dive into one of the most critical issues that cities are facing in the moment. Cities require more and more energy, but in the same time, they need to rapidly reduce energy-related emissions in order to curb the rise of global temperatures. Cities have already taken some decisive actions to cut emissions, for example, by decreasing energy supply from renewable sources such as wind and solar, biomass, or also hydro and tidal. Another way to cut emissions would be to reduce the carbon footprint of the buildings and make buildings more efficient. So buildings account for around 50% of the total emission of a city. Yet municipalities around the world have pledged or have committed to make new buildings carbon neutral by 2030. Singapore, for example, they have committed to make 80% of all buildings carbon neutral. Yet the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy is not that easy. There are big technical hurdles to address, like dealing with the old legacy power grid, or supporting decentralization and flexible sources with unstable power generation, such as solar and wind. So what are the challenges and opportunities of the future of energy and resource efficiency in cities? How can a successful energetic transition be effectively funded? And what kind of policies local governments need to implement to improve energy performance and lower emissions? We will discuss these questions and further questions in the next 2 hours. We will start with a keynote speech of a wonderful young speaker from London/Egypt, and we will have then a dialogue session with the city of Cologne and Barcelona. After a short networking break, we will have an exciting panel discussion with 5 expert speakers from all around the world. For every segment, we are planning time for Q&A, as we want to make this session as interactive as possible and to answer the questions that you all have. So please be with us with your mind and your attention. The Wi-Fi is very slow to work anyway, so it's my pleasure now to invite on stage Yostina Boules. She is an inspiring entrepreneur and an expert on renewable energy and blockchain. It is her first keynote speech, but I told her that you are a wonderful audience, so please give her a big round of applause. Yostina, over to you.
Good morning. I'm very happy to be here. It's my first time in Spain. I'll try to make this as less technical as possible. So, yes. So I'm Yostina Boules. I'm an energy transition economist. For the past 3 years, I've been focusing on blockchain applications in energy systems. I'm part of a global observatory at UCL that looks into peer-to-peer trading, which we will dive into through the next presentation. So to set the context, what is energy transition? I'm sure you're all familiar with the concepts of decarbonizing the grid, digitizing the grid, decentralization, and digitization. So the current system, as you can see in the picture, is very rigid. We have traditional, let's say, network operators that we are looking into transforming from distributed network operators to distributed system operators, meaning that with more renewable energy resources integrated into the grid, we need the system operators to be more flexible to understand what are the small players doing into the larger system. And we also need new economic models to incentivize smaller generators. The IEA, the International Energy Agency, in 2017 produced a report on the clean energy technologies uptake. In the first graph, as you can see, the uptake of technologies are going up, but on the contrary to what we might think, because their costs are going down, their levelized cost of electricity is also going down. So whatever the generators have been promised to get as a revenue for the prices of their electricity it's also going down as the costs are going down. We are very focused on consumer-centered power system. I think you've all heard about human design-centered systems, and this is what we aspire for the future grid to be. The future grid has to be empowering small actors. It is one of the pillars for both the UK and the EU policies to empower these small actors. However, there isn't much incentives being done nowadays. So although we want everyone to be an active consumer, to understand what are their electricity resources, there hasn't been much yet done for them to be integrated the way they should be. Now, why blockchain? This is like the buzzword, which either breaks or makes the room. But very simply, blockchain is a data, any form of digital data that can be transferred or traded in digital transactions. So there is a potential for blockchain to disrupt the governance system of electricity from a top-down to a bottom-up governance system, which breaks the traditional forms of governance. The second thing is the nature of blockchain, which is distributed consensus, which means that everyone on blockchain, all the players on blockchain have to validate and verify transactions. And therefore, we're moving away from a central governance to a distributed governance. This is not very, let's say, popular because the network distributors and operators are energy system is a very regulated system. When we think about financial industry, we know that the regulators are very rigid, but it's the same thing with energy systems. This is an example of a transaction on a blockchain. So, for example, two people or more than two people want to do a transaction. The first thing that happens is that a block is created. It's seriously a block like Tetris blocks. So one block is created, and then as you can see, there are different nodes in the system, which can be the regulator, a supplier, a generator, or just a prosumer, which is a person who has the ability to produce electricity. Once all or the people who have the power on the blockchain have verified this transaction, therefore the block is created and it's added to the chain. And these orders are secure, they cannot be changed, they're immutable, and they're interoperable, which means that hardware can now speak to each other. And of course, it's shared consensus. So the transaction is not going to happen unless multiple parties on the blockchain verify and validate this transaction. I'll give two examples of blockchain. I hope time helps me for the future of the power grid. The first one is peer-to-peer, and as the name connotates, it means transferring energy from one household to another, or from one prosumer to a consumer. This is driving new user-centered business models, which means that it's local And of course, if it's local, that means that we keep the money in the local communities. The energy bills are reduced because there is less administrative costs. And the second example is trading energy certificates on blockchain, which is a new model to finance and create vehicles to generate more revenues for the smaller generators. So why peer-to-peer? Consumers and prosumers are facing increasing energy prices, keeping the end consumer interested. So we need to think of the consumer as a social actor, not just a market player. Consumers don't only respond to prices, they respond to socioeconomic factors like climate change. We can see that more consumers are choosing renewables, and they want to see visibility over their energy resources. So this is the first model, which is peer-to-peer energy trading. As you can see, we don't foresee the system of peer-to-peer to be like overtaking the grid. It's going to be like organic food, still 10% only of the whole grid. But what happens? The traditional models is that we receive from the grid electricity. We have seen feed-in tariffs, which means that we can inject into the grid electricity. But also, we can trade with our neighbors the electricity that we produce. This is going to add more flexibility to the system operators. Why? Because on the blockchain, we can create mechanisms to aggregate the produced electricity, and therefore, with more aggregation, there is more reliance on these small players. So as you can see, you can trade with each other, you can inject into the grid, and you can export and import the electricity both ways. It's not rigid. It's not only big infrastructure, electricity moving one way. It's more dynamic. The second example is MicroGrid. And these are examples happening in Cornwall, happening in Brooklyn, and they're as simple as a microgrid. It doesn't have to be a physical microgrid built into the system. It is just a virtual layer above the assets already introduced. And this is a way for us to amplify the values of the assets already connected to the grid, meaning that when we foresee infrastructure and transmission lines, this is the old way or the old fashion of doing electricity. The new way is amplifying the values of the assets that we already have that are already installed in the system. So as you can see, one of the houses can have a solar panel. They're producing excess electricity, and then they can trade it with their neighbors. Sometimes it can be aggregated. Sometimes it can just be integrated into the grid. I'm not going to go through the pricing of electricity because from peer-to-peer. We recommend that it has to be regulated for the dynamic prices to happen, because otherwise consumers are only going to buy electricity when it's cheaper, like when the sun is shining or when it's windier, and therefore the electricity goes down. But dynamic pricing and regulated pricing makes sure that the prosumers get enough revenues for the assets that they installed. So the outcome is increased awareness of energy efficiency, potential, and demand-side management. This gives the operator actually flexibility measures. There's a wider socioeconomic goals being met, where people are more interested in decarbonizing the grid because they are now an active player in the system. They're not just receiving electricity and paying their bills. They understand more how the grid is working and how they can contribute to it. And saving of the future of infrastructure costs, meaning that we don't need to take the transmission line from one city to another. We don't need to all be around the same resources in the central places, but we can go out of the cities and create more flexible infrastructure. So far, so good? Yeah? Okay, great. How many of you, this is a bit more technical topic, so I just want to know, by show of hand, how many of you know what is a renewable energy certificate? Yay, okay, great. Perfect. Of course, if you know the certificates, then you know how rigid the market is and how regulated, highly regulated it is. And although it is highly regulated, it's very confusing for suppliers because regulations from one place in Europe is different to another country in Europe. So and on the other hand, the consumers who are receiving the electricity, they are not communicated efficiently. You only receive a paper in your mail at the end of the year telling you what percentage of the electricity was renewable. But this is not enough. I want to know more about where my electricity is coming from. Is it local? Is it coming from overseas? What kind of renewables? Maybe I want wind. Maybe I don't want hydro. So the communications of the electricity resources is not very transparent and visual. There's also a lack in mobility in the marketplace because of the regulations. Sometimes when you want to move certificates from one country to another, you're met with regulatory challenges. And that means that most of the suppliers at the end of the year, when they have to disclose their energy resources, unfortunately, they lose a lot of money just because the regulations are variable. They change all the time. And the last thing is, electricity consumers pay 1.4 billion on average a year in excessive pricing from the period of 2012 to 2021. A big percentage of that is administrative, which means that a huge percentage of our electricity bill is not going to actually for us to obtain the electricity. It's going for the operator to buy this electricity or to distribute it or for the network operators. And this is inefficiency. And of course, through using a better ICT system, using better data to talk to each other, we can reduce these bills. So the current market as it is if there is a generator of renewable electricity, they will be audited yearly. And that means that someone has to go and check that the assets that a generator is saying is there. And that's, of course, is added to our bills. It's passed on. All these are costs passed on to us as consumers. And then once the certificate is issued, then the generator can send it over to the supplier, and the supplier can disclose it. Or sometimes these certificates are bought by companies that want to go green. Like, for example, if Facebook or Unilever or Google want to say that they are going green, because not all the time they can buy all the power purchase agreements that they want, sometimes they have to buy these certificates. And therefore, a black market is created. The prices of these certificates are going up. And that might be a good thing, because now we're creating more finance for renewable generators, but that is not the case. The money goes to brokers. And what do you think the solution of that? It's blockchain, because in blockchain, disintermediation or removal of third parties from the system happens to decrease the costs of third parties. So the certificates are issued, and then they're traded, and the ownership changes from the generator to the supplier or to the corporate that wants to buy these certificates. On blockchain, the system is mainstreamed very easy. One generator producing the electricity, having issued this certificate, the company or the corporate wants to buy it, or even the household wants to buy these certificates or want to buy the electricity from this generator, they can just buy it from each other. There is no cost going into third parties, no black market for the certificates, and no brokers. So as I said, just reiteration, the administrative costs and reduction, increasing the efficiency of the system. The system is automated. You can just buy it through a click. Regulations are mainstreamed. And then, therefore, we're creating innovative finance for small generators. The money and the revenue is going directly to the small generators, not going to the brokers. This is just the recommendations of IEA. IEA always says that governments have to do more to make sure that the generators of renewables have a stable revenue. And second thing, there's the infrastructure challenges, which we need to address through using ICT systems properly. And the third is creating finance for off-taker risks. It's estimated that in the EU alone, the transition will take an investment of around 200 billion euros. And in the US, it's going to take $2 trillion. That's, of course, big numbers. If we think of the system as a traditional form of system where one big player is still producing electricity for the whole city. But if we start thinking of the system as a distributed system, decentralized, where the consensus and the governance is distributed, then we're moving into the future. And we see the future of the energy system of light, not more of fire. The consumers have the right to choose where their electricity is coming from. If the governments puts more stable framework for the ICT system to be integrated and for finance to move from just a rigid structure to a more flexible structure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yostina. I think this was wonderful, wasn't it? Another round of applause?
Thank you.
Thank you. We would have a few minutes left because it's a complex topic. So if some of you have questions, we would love to take 2 or 3 questions from the floor. So is there any questions? Hands up. No question. They are all too shy. I have actually one question.
There's one question here.
Oh, there is a question.
Hi, thank you. What do you think is the future role of the energy providers and the grid management providers in this kind of thing? Because you were mentioning that the structures are really rigid, and
yes.
I think we need some kind of transition from the current situation. What has to be done in order to be able to achieve this kind of topic?
So, for example, Centrica, I don't understand what you mean by providers. Is it suppliers or generators? Yeah. So, for example, Centrica is being involved in the Cornwall project, which is the local energy market. I think companies are starting to understand that there has to be an incentive for small players, and they're trying to be involved in that and be a key player for that. There is still a long road to go from where we are now to how this future system is going to be. And of course, all the players in the system are important because the suppliers have the experience of the grid, how it works, how to manage the demand and supply on half-hourly basis. Yeah.
Does it answer your question? Yeah. Do we have another question? Yeah, so maybe I ask my question. Because you said in the blockchain model for the certificates, it's much easier, but the physical audit would still need to happen, like it did in the... Maybe you can,
I'm trying to get the slide. Anyway.
Don't worry. Yeah, so the audit itself would still need to happen in the blockchain model, right?
That's a great question. Yes, the audit needs to happen. But right now, the audit happens physically. And we have seen a lot of technological advancement where through satellite visual, you can make sure that the assets are connected. And through the hardware fingerprint, so because the blockchain is interoperable and because smart meters and a lot of things are being connected already to the grid, this kind of fingerprints and this kind of connectivity removes the hassle of physical auditing of the plants. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There's one last question.
So I'm not an energy expert, but with respect to this, I've often heard the term smart contracts.
Yes.
I don't know if you work with that or if you could elaborate on that shortly. Because
Yes.
I don't really know what it is, but it's always mentioned.
Thank you so much. I didn't want to go into the details of blockchain, but smart contracts, briefly, are, let's say, the agreement that parties on the blockchain have. So, for example, if all of us are on the same blockchain, and we want to make sure that the block, remember the red block, is not executed except if certain aspects are met. This is the smart contract. It's smart because it's digital, but it's still a contract. And this is a way, actually, for regulators to make sure that whatever rules they want to have are still met, so the block or the transaction is not going to happen except if the rules of the smart contract is met.
So thank you very much, Yostina. She will also be around in the networking break,
Yes.
so please approach her. And therefore, another round of applause. And thanks, Yostina.
Thank you.
Yeah, while we are setting now the stage for our dialogue session, I would already like to introduce our two dialogue speakers. So we have Barbara Möhlendick. She is the head of Smart Cities and Climate of the city of Cologne. And Manel Sanmartí, who is the Director, Corporate Development and Technology Transfer of the Colonia Institute for Energy Research. May I please invite you up on stage? Yeah, we are set.
Middle?
Yeah, mixed.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us here today. Barcelona and Cologne, I think two wonderful cities, two important cities in Europe, two very old and history-loaded cities. So it's my pleasure to have you here. And I would like to start with you, Manel. So the two cities are working together. Maybe you can share a bit more how you collaborate and also explain a bit more about the Grow Smarter project that you have.
Yeah, actually we have been working together for already 5 years, even a bit more, for the preparation of the proposal. Grow Smarter is about lighthouse project on smart cities. It's about deploying 12 smart solutions in energy, smart mobility and infrastructures, ICT solutions, in 3 cities, Stockholm, Cologne and Barcelona. And basically the idea was to have a kind of a first implementation of solutions in the 3 cities, similar solutions but adapted to each of the cities, deploying basically the solutions with industrial partners and monitoring them so that we could be able to evaluate them technically and economically, so that at the end of the day we could be able to replicate them at the city level, scale it up, or to follow our cities or other cities in Europe, so that we can validate the technical feasibility, economical feasibility, business models, user engagement, whatever is related to really mass market penetration of those solutions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Barbara, quickly over to you. Cologne was the first big German city that declared climate emergency. I think it was in July. Maybe you can tell us a bit more how this evolved and what it means to your work.
Yes, hello everybody. We were very proud to be the first lighthouse city, and we are also very proud to be the first metropolitan city in Germany to have this climate emergency call. And actually, climate issue is very hot at the moment, but already years ago, Barcelona, Stockholm and Cologne decided we have to look at climate-friendly districts. So we have this integrated approach with mobility, energy, and also binding everything in with the digitalization, the IT. And climate emergency in Cologne means at the moment that we would like to learn from this example we have in the Grow Smarter project, in this European Horizon research project, and have a rollout on the city. And actually in the moment it's already happening. Our findings in mobility, there is a rollout on the whole city. And in the beginning we were really struggling to have those innovative measures, and this helped us a lot. And climate emergency at the moment, of course, we look at every at every project in the city, and we say what it's doing to the climate, to the CO2 balance in our city. So it's a big effort, but we are learning. It's just very new.
And what were some of the tests that you were running, and do you have some first results? So just some concrete examples what it was.
Yes. For example, in the energy part, we have like a little virtual power plant in a district where about 1,000 tenants are living, and we bind together different energy sources like photovoltaic, solar, thermic, heat pumps, and we also have district heating. So we manage the system with a virtual power plant, so it's most CO2 friendly. And there is a results at the moment that's we are looking at the results. Yeah. So Manel has different figures than I have. I have the 72% and you CO2 reduction, and yours is around 70 as well. So I think that's a big success, because it was still a research. So this is only looking at the refurbishment project, so we didn't include the mobility part so far, so it will be even higher.
But these trial phases or trial projects, do they have the opportunity to be scaled up? Because I think that is what needed in the moment.
Yeah, basically this was the idea. In the cities, we have done partnerships with industry so that we have deployed the measures. And as I mentioned before, all the measures has been evaluated from a microscopic point of view. So even if you have changed the windows or the isolation of the building, it was measured to validate the technical assessment, whether it was good enough, the performances forecasted. And then from a global perspective as well, so that the industrial partners could scale it up at the same city level or in other cities or other parts of the country. And the idea was to validate those measures for Northern European countries, so northern climate, Central European countries with different conditions, and for mild climate cities like Barcelona. And not only the technical conditions were validated, the use of the buildings, it was different. We were talking about social housing, private housing. In Barcelona, we have been tackling commercial buildings. And in Cologne, it was social housing. So different uses of the buildings and different business models. So partnering with ESCO companies, energy service companies, with the municipality, with public operators, so that we could have the all spread of actors and business models to be really replicated.
Great. Now, I think it's a very important part, because we talked about it, how new buildings can be carbon neutral or even carbon positive. But when we chatted before, they were saying, yeah, but Barcelona and Cologne, they are already completely built. So I think here is really the question, how to do retrofitting in a very fast pace. I think that was some of the points we discussed, right?
Yes, as a city, we have started a funding program ourselves, so we are giving money to the tenants that they can do the refurbishment, and we also have, together with an energy company, contracting models, and we try to convince together with different actors, with industry, but also with other private sector, that we give funding to promote renewable energy, especially photovoltaics. It's the highest potential. We could cover more than 1/3 of our energy by photovoltaics in Cologne, and that's what we are tackling.
Okay, great. Maybe, Manel, you can also elaborate. You mentioned there are many different stakeholders involved. Maybe let's talk a moment about the citizen, the tenant. What can each of us can do? So maybe you can elaborate what tenants, you said you give funding to them, but what is the role of the citizen and the tenant? And is the awareness that is like on the streets, people marching on the street, is it also happening at home?
Yeah, basically we're talking a lot about energy retrofitting, but at the end of the day there is a tenant inside the building, so you have to take care of them, first of all. We have not only done building retrofitting, we have implemented local generation, like PV systems or waste energy recovery, and we have used in the 3 cities several platforms, home energy management systems and apps, in order to interact with the end user. And it has been, in the 3 cities, quite different result, and it's not always easy to get a feedback from the users. However, we know that the user engagement is a key point for that. from the beginning of the measure. So whatever you want to refurbish social housing or building in any of the 3 cities, I would say, you really need to involve the tenants from the beginning. It doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work like that. That you just go there to refurbish the building and it works. You have measured the energy savings about 30%, and it's fantastic. No, it doesn't work like that. People need to be involved from the beginning. They have something to say, and you have to capture really what is the value, because we have tested different models. In some cases in Stockholm, they cannot increase the rent, so you have to recover the investment somewhere else. In Spain, they are paying the energy bills, but not in Cologne, because the rent is included in the bill. So you have to really take care with the end user, what is the value of the energy savings, what is the revenue as well, so he's collecting that. And finally, which is the most important, the user behavior and let's say the user engagement, because apart from that, you need a kind of a lighthouse or showcase room in order to teach the people, form them and train them in order to get used to the energy savings and becoming green.
Great. I would also like the chance to open to the floor. So if there are some burning questions, we have a bit of time, so we can go a bit deeper into the areas that are of interest to you. So are there any questions? Yes, please. Would you like to come to the mic?
Hi. What do you think is the role of heat as a service as part of the energy transition? I don't know if you understand what I mean by heat as a service.
No, can you repeat the first?
The acoustic.
Which kind of service?
Yeah. What is the role of heat as a service? Heat as a service for both consumers and generators.
Heat as a service, you
Heat,
said.
yes.
Okay,
Heat as a
yes,
service.
now we got heat as a service.
Yeah, well, it's a good point. I don't know exactly what does it mean, heat as a service. If I do the approach from mobility as a service, I would say energy as a service could be a good approach, not only heat. Especially I talk about Barcelona, we are providing basically electricity for the electrical consumption and cooling as a service, I would say, more than heating, because my climate is a bit
In the moment,
less.
you need heating.
Yeah, well, this week. Not the rest of the year, probably, but... No, actually, we have validated that the energy savings and from the heat production and the heat supply for the northern countries is the business model is much easier than for Mediterranean countries. And this is one of the learnings that, even that we knew it, has been validated in Gross Marter, and you need to combine from an energy service perspective, measures that are really attractive in order to invest. You can, I mean, heating as a service for a Mediterranean country wouldn't work if you do not combine that with PV or with other service where you can really recover the investment. So I would say that, well, yes, but have to be adapted for each city if you're really providing heat, and I would scale it up to energy service. And this will certainly make sense. Actually, the ESCO models are going this way. I invest in your building, in your house, in your apartment, so that with the energy savings, I recover the investment. And combining passive measures, so more efficient measures or active measures, you may find a good compromise to provide this service.
And if I may add, also in Singapore, we have a lot of like cooling as a service, and companies that look after the whole energy efficiency of a building, and therefore they gain with the gains of cost savings, they gain as well, but also the building owner is gaining in that space because it's managed more effectively and efficiently.
And I think it's very interesting, but what you, I mean, how to pack this service? Does it mean it comes from the maintenance and then you just do the service because you have to take care of the installations? You may link it to what was explained before on the energy transaction. So I provide you whatever the energy, you can certify it green or whatever, and then we link with the local energy communities, and then I manage a local community, and it's not only heat, it's energy community services. I don't know, it's very interesting and promising, probably.
Do we have other questions from the floor? There's a question. Can you please come to the mic?
Hi there. Thank you for coming out, for being our panel today. My name is Jonathan. I'm a fourth-year university student studying right now urban planning and public policy. And one of the questions I wanted to ask the panel is that in order to achieve an energy mix or achieve, more renewable energy system that we're trying to implement in many different cities, in order to implement those type of systems, those require a lot of resources as well to implement, right? And one of the things that, for example, when we're thinking about renewable energy systems, we're thinking about hydro, solar, wind, and so many different factors. But the infrastructure needed to create those things comes from rare earth metals. And right now, currently, China is the only country right now that's processing about 90% or more of those type of materials. So have you considered, right, the fact of where do your cities stand in collecting these materials in order to, right, achieve a renewable energy system?
I didn't understand acoustically. Did you get the question?
Your
Which
question was
materials?
mainly
Which
on
materials?
resource recovery in a city, not only on energy. Resource recovery in general? Yeah, resource
Okay,
recovery.
yeah. Yes, thanks for the question. I think what we did in Grow Smarter is more how to run the city. And we have to go as city towards the considering of the whole cycle and the resources. Some European cities have switched from the just CO2 calculation to the life cycle assessment, but not Cologne so far. I know that Amsterdam, Eindhoven, maybe some Netherlands city. I don't know about Barcelona.
Well, I can say that one small part of the project has been using batteries to be integrated with solar panels, and the technology provider is using second life batteries. So it goes a bit in this direction to reuse the batteries of the electrical car in a second life use, so that we can extend the range of the batteries and do not recycle them immediately after they are pulled out of the car, but we can increase the lifetime of those batteries. It goes a bit in this direction, but we have not really looking onto the materials themselves for the PVs or other components.
Well, maybe I can add also, as a city council, we decided also that we would use recycled materials and more wood, for example, with another two balance. Or if we give money for refurbishment, we only give it if a certain standard of material is done. So in that respect, yes, but not in the project. It was very small part.
Well, in terms of waste, we have used as well in Barcelona, we have a district heating and cooling network, and basically it's using waste energy from a plant which is close by Barcelona, and this has been used, so it's a way of closing the loop, right? So using local energy and waste energy in this case. And in Stockholm, they have implemented a very smart solution, which is basically recovering heat from a supermarket and a data center. They have the district heating network, so they are re-injecting the heat they are producing to the district heating so that they can resell it. And we have been testing that not only technically, but the business model and the regulation so that they can do it. And this will be upscaled to other northern countries and cities in Europe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, please. Yeah, I think that the circular economy principles within a city and how can the different streams can be better linked is one of the big topics in the future as well. Please.
Hello, I'm Francisco Gonçalves from Energy Cities. I also participate in Smart Cities projects. Actually, I know these two people here with whom I had the pleasure to work. This is one of the smart cities, and the smart cities initiatives are one of the most important initiatives, I think, worldwide, also promoting integrated measures that really trigger sustainability in the cities. And I invite you everyone to go to the stand of Smart Cities and Communities, actually is in the hall 2, where you have all the projects like Grow Smarter. But my question here is to Barbara and to Manel, is invite you to travel back 6 years, but you know what you know today. What would have you been done differently?
Very good questions. Love that one.
Yeah, if I should start, the cooperation within different city departments has improved a lot. It took a lot to start that, to bind together sectors of mobility, of energy, and of telecommunications. So in the beginning, we were used to do our work in our silos. And so that is really a radical change how we work together also with industry partners for the project. And the second point I would like to make is the tenants or the end user, the cooperation with the end users. We had to learn a lot. In Stockholm and also in Cologne, more than 50% is social income receiver of the tenants. So they were not interested in the topic of climate, but in their life quality. So it was difficult to get in touch, and we had to invest much more in tenants communication, especially in Stockholm and in Cologne, to make this happen. So I think those are the 2 points where we learned a lot and where we would do in a different way today.
Yeah, I think it has been a success, the project. So we have learned plenty of things. And actually, as a researcher, what I could do now is do not work on industrial solutions which have been tested and validated. I could work on things like local energy communities, real exchange of energy peer-to-peer, or in local communities, as it was mentioned before by the previous speaker. And I would go a step beyond all of that, because we have been testing really industrial solution. This is ready to be rolled out in the market. I could really now focus on these topics, and especially what Barbara mentioned. We need the user to be really in the center, and it's not a topic, it's not a trending topic by itself, it's a reality. We have been looking at that. I've been in a building in Barcelona which had only the renovation of the facade, so it was really poor renovation. The air leaking was everywhere. I was in the dwellings and the air was flowing everywhere. It was really cold, I can tell you. And seeing those people so engaged with the project, even though we were doing so little, it was amazing. So the powerful of the people, and if with the mobiles, with the ICT technology, you just empower them, we will really success, I guess, in the energy transition, and that's what we need.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's also a good wrap-up to focus on the human being that lives in a building, and we also always should keep that in mind, but maybe getting some bolder actions from the city governments, from the research institute, and also from the industrial player to really move the needle faster than we do now. No, thank you very much for sharing those very practical examples. I hope you enjoyed this session. We will now have a short networking break. There's coffee in the back, I learned.
Thank you, everybody. If you could take your seats, we've got a great panel and lots of information, and we want to get started because we've got a lot to cram in, and I really hope we can get some time for your questions as well. I'm Eric Woods. I'm Research Director for Smart Cities at Navigant Research, and we do considerable work around trends and developments in the smart city space, and I'm going to be the moderator for this panel. We've heard a lot already about the importance of cities in the energy transition. The Global Covenant of Mayors estimates that if the commitments made by the 9,000 plus signatories to that covenant were delivered, we'd save 1.4 gigatons in emissions by 2030 and 2.8 gigatons by 2050. By 2030, that'd be the same as taking all the cars off the road in the United States for 1 year. So there's huge potential in cities, but now we need to deliver on it. And as we've heard in the first part of this morning's session, it's about a combination of technology solutions and the willpower and the commitment of cities. We're going to continue that dialogue in this session. And we're going to begin with the solution provider view. So I'd like to ask Alex Delia, President of Prosume, to come up and start us off. Please give Alex your attention. We look forward to a great session. Thank you. Alex.
So, hi Eric, thanks for the presentation. Yes, I'm Alex Delia, President of Prosume. Prosume is a software house company working on distributed technologies. So we try to help and ease this energy transition. And we started long ago with another company name, then we evolved and we founded Prosume in 2017. From there, we started delivering some first use case, proof of concept with energy utilities and providers. We recently also, last year, we won a small grant from the Barcelona municipality. We are demoing how energy transition distributed based on distributed technology should work. And yes, this is the team. We have based in Milan, Barcelona, Berlin, and offices, technical offices in Rome. And yeah, I believe this is what this is what was presented before. We were discussing about this energy transition, about the fact that the infrastructure model is changing. We are moving from a centralized model towards what is called a decentralized, distributed model. And by changing this, we not only change how this infrastructure is built and how energy is collected, but we also are moving toward what they call the prosumers, so the users, which are not only consumers but also producers. And as it was presented before, I believe you understood that these are players which are really important, specifically if we move toward a microgrid management of the infrastructure. And they will, and they are already changing this. And this is what we are doing in real, let's say, because we are delivering solutions for energy providers, for aggregators, for all the stakeholders. So from the infrastructure level to what is called also the energy provisioning. We help them regulate energy management and trace data flows. And we help them ease this transition towards a layer where there is intercommunication and a real data exchange, because energy is being digitized. We are seeing what is called the IoT technology coming in and bringing all the smartness towards the edge of the infrastructure. So no more on the centralized control, but toward the edges, because we have microgrids that are intercommunicating, or at least they should intercommunicate. So we are helping them, and we do it by following standards, by working towards what is a standardized model, an open model. I believe you have seen how the web was disrupting many different industries, many verticals, and on the energy is actually happening more or less the same, slower maybe, but it's happening more or less the same. So we are seeing really an evolution, and in this evolution, I think we could really grasp the advantages that the web delivered. So I would like to, what we are proposing is a new kind of market model where users, prosumers, providers are playing together, and we deliver that by providing a common solutions where the service and the contractual level is actually managed. This is small competition, but I would like to move, to what is the model. You've seen in the panel before that they presented how the blockchain could actually help this transition. We don't say too much this buzzword anymore. We are not talking too much about blockchain distributed ledger, although we leverage on distributed ledger, but what we are trying to do is to actually ease this intercommunication, because we are seeing, I don't know if this is working, no. Well, we are seeing energy providers with the big blue basket there, and energy suppliers who are providing energy. They are still providing energy because this is a transition. So it's not happening today, it will happen tomorrow, but we already see prosumers delivering energy to the grids, in the microgrids, and still we have providers helping them and giving them a backup energy. In all this picture, we have those administering the grids and also on the government layer, and they have to play together. So what we're doing is simplifying this process, and we do it with real use cases. As we said, we are working together with a TSO, so actually it's a huge transmission system operator. We are demoing tomorrow here in Barcelona our platform for managing distributed exchange of energy. And we are doing it in Italy with a huge aggregator. They aggregate capacity of prosumers, almost 40,000 prosumers. And we help them manage the governance of this infrastructure, just as it was presented before in the blockchain panel. We are doing it for real. And this is, yeah, more or less, that's all.
Thank you, Alex. Beautifully on time. We'll keep that for a question later. So there's really exciting things happening in terms of the ability of platforms to deliver on the vision we laid out. We're now going to hear from actually one of the most exciting projects that have been going for a number of years in Europe, from Ines Vagel from the Aspen Smart City Research Center, who's going to talk about developments and recent developments in Vienna and Aspen. Ines, please.
Thank you, Eric, for the introduction. So I prepared a quite personal story for you. You cannot imagine what happened to me recently. It's something that rarely ever happens to anyone, us, the Generation Y, but it happened to me. I fell in love. In case you're wondering now, why is this crazy lady on stage telling us these personal things? In fact, that love story is the story I want to talk about, I want to share with you during the next 8 minutes. When I first met sustainable city management and planning, I really got impressed by the powerful potential within cities for human on a global level. And I cannot deny I had butterflies in my stomach and an intrinsic desire to play a role. Here you can see a model, a 3D model of my love. This is a greenfield designed city within the city of Vienna. It is one of Vienna's city development areas. There are a few, but this one is special for me. It's surrounded by a lake, which can be used for swimming or very soon ice skating. And by the way, is one of the major sources of our renewable energy concepts. I will talk about it more later. Seestadt Aspen will be completed 2028, and then 20,000 people will find here a new home, as well as work. At the moment, 1/4 is complete, 7,000 people settled. The area is very well connected by subway to the city center. Since the increasing energy demand in the cities is a major issue, ASR, Aspen Smart City Research, was found in order to find innovative solutions for future cities in urban areas, to find new combination how to supply cities. The company is a joint venture of Siemens, the technology provider, Wiener Energie, which is the biggest Austrian energy supplier, and my employer, Wiener Netze and the Vienna Business Agency, to call the 4 biggest. Soon it turned out the whole project is very complex and there are a lot of intercorrelations. Within the team, we define 4 main domains. Smart buildings as prosumers and increasing brain, the smart grid and its adaptation to energy transition due to increasing renewables, the smart user, the human behind the technology. And also we are looking for ways how to motivate human people to change their behavior into a more sustainable one. And we have, of course, ICT, how to handle big data and create a data treasury. You can imagine we have a lot of different domains, different experts within the domains. They have different cultures, priorities, languages. And we soon figured out by applying the old school competitive model, we won't go anywhere far. We need to find new ways to trigger collaboration. For us, the sum of all individual parts is more than the individual parts. We need to consider not only the individual domains, but also the intercorrelation and the interdependencies to maximize overall benefits. So our spirit is a win-win-win-win orientation. What do you think were the main issues? It's like in all relationships, it's always the same. It's communication. We need to talk to each other, and it's trust. We need to trust the data and each other's reliability. About communication, in order to be able to clearly communicate, you need to know what you want yourself. On this graph, you see one of our testbed buildings. In this case, it's a residential home. The building is, of course, equipped with a very innovative energy solution. This building is thermally completely autark, so self-sufficient, meaning all thermal energy for heating and hot water is created on-site by renewable energies. The building is connected to the power grid, but thermally it's autark. So we create energy by different kind of heat pumps using sun energy. We have storages, battery storages, as well as thermal storages, sector coupling, and a lot of sensors gathering a lot of data. The data is collected in the brain of the building, which is a building energy management system. This building energy management system also knows external variables, like weather forecast or calendar information. And it calculates forecast for the building, its supply and demand, as well as production. And then it optimizes the most optimal operational schedule for all the different assets. And even it automatically operates all the different assets. As soon as the building knows what it needs and is able to do, it also can bend to other needs and take them into respect and into account. For example, the grid. The building is connected to the power grid. The two of them form a symbiotic coexistence. They take energy and feed in energy, and they should do that not only considering their own needs at the time, but maybe taking into account the other state. Our buildings are also already trading their flexibilities on a balancing energy market. On this graph, you see also a little bit of our vision. We want to combine not only the buildings and the grids, we want to combine different buildings with each other and actually realize the European vision of an energy community, which will be operated by a local energy management platform. So that's been actually already my a bit emotional story. I hope I could share my passion and explain why I think this project is quite sexy. I'm part of that team and I'm very happy about that. 3 of us are here today and tomorrow in our booth and are always happy to welcome you and answer further questions.
Thank you, Ines, for sharing your love story. It's the first time I think anyone started a presentation on one of my panels with that opening. From one innovative city to another, and now I'd like to ask Anna Schindler from the city of Zurich to come and give us some insight into how Zurich is progressing on its program for sustainability. Thank you, Anna.
Does it work? Yes. Okay. So, hello to everybody. I am the Director of Urban Development of the City of Zurich. And I think the goal of every urban development right now should be a smart city. So, this is why also the City of Zurich, we have just launched a citywide smart city strategy. And our aim there is dealing with many subjects as energy, mobility, but it's also to enable projects that make use of the potential of the digital transformation to foster sustainable development, to improve the quality of life for all citizens, and to be at the forefront of digital innovation. I know that is practically the aim of every smart city strategy, but I'm going to show you a little bit in these few minutes how the city of Zurich wants to tackle with this challenge. In our view, smart means connecting people, connecting organizations and infrastructures in a way that creates social, environmental, and economic added value. This means that we are not focusing only on using technology as an end in itself. It's not all about technology, but it's about technology as a means to solve real problems for real people. Cities do not get smarter only by investing in new technologies, but more importantly by reducing carbon emissions, big subject right now, and by improving the quality of life for all their citizens, for the residents and also for the visitors of their city. We do not want to set new technology-driven goals for our city through the Smart City initiative, but rather support, accelerate, and complement existing strategies of all our city's departments. And we have a lot of strategies of different projects going on in different fields that are very intelligent, but that they need to be connected more. So, to address climate change, it's the most pressing challenge of our times. The City of Zurich has put forward various strategies and defined ambitious goals already. Most notably, maybe it's most known all over, is the goal of the 2000 watt society, which means reducing the energy consumption to 2000 watts per person by 2050. Through Smart City Zurich, we want to enable projects driven by data, participation and collaboration to achieve, for instance, this goal of the 2000 watt society. Because it's today's topic, also here in Barcelona, and it's about the energy transition in urban areas. I think it's a cornerstone of every master plan to address climate change. To ensure political commitment in the long run, Switzerland always has its own means by direct democracy, but we have had a referendum in 2008 that has been voted with a 3/4 majority to put the goals of 2000 watt society into our constitution. So it's really something that we have to follow. It's not a choice that we have. That was over 10 years ago, and many initiatives have been taken since then. On the policy level, the city's approach is to have holistic plans that address energy shift, energy efficiency, and energy sufficiency in different areas, the areas of building, areas of settlement, of mobility, of consumption, and of energy supply. And we are currently reviewing our mobility strategy and focusing more on electronic mobility, focusing more on public transportation, on bike, on pedestrian traffic. We are currently putting forward a master plan for the city's climate change. So this master plan talks about where we have heat spots, heat islands in the city, and what we can do, because temperature from the center of the city to the periphery has a difference of almost 10 degrees in summer. And we have also important measures that have been derived in strategic expansions of heating and cooling networks within the city. For instance, Zurich's waste incineration network has the capacity to provide the heating for over 170,000 households, and it will be expanded in the future even more. So, how can the Smart City strategy support all these goals, for instance, in this energy shift? I give you just two practical examples, because I said before, Smart City is a lot about data, and what we are doing is enabling solutions that have already been thought of or being put into action by data platforms, or by using data in another way. The first example is Energies, and it's a platform. And the problem is, even though the city of Zurich is a city of tenants, we don't have so many house owners, but we still have a large number. with particular interests. They all have their own interests. They poses the challenge of shifting the energy source to renewable energy. That's one of our goals. Becomes a little bit more difficult with so many different house owners. And furthermore, they often don't have all the relevant information they need to make the best decision when it comes about shifting from one heating system to the other. So we have created a solution. This is a platform. It's called Energis. It has been set up like 1 year ago, still in the phase of a pilot testing phase. And this platform links geo-information with building and energy data from sources such as municipalities, energy planning department of the city, local energy providers, in order to help the house owners to switch their energy sources from like oil heating to renewable energy. Because they can see, as you see here, they can see what kind of sources they have in their neighborhood, if there's the possibility of distant heating, if they can be part of some network. And this platform then helps them to find or to take the right decision. And it's also about prices, because there you can also find out how much it would cost to shift from one energy source to another. It's an important point. And the second example is more about citizen participation. It's enabled by citizen participation. It's an initiative called Solar Zürich, this Solar Energy Zurich, and by our provider, by our power station, EWZ. And the problem here is most people living in Zurich do not own the apartment they live in, so they do not own the building they live in. But maybe they would like to put solar panels on the roof, or they would like to support solar energy in some way, and they can't because it's not their own apartment. So EWZ, our city energy station, the local energy provider, offers via this Solar Zurich a participatory platform for citizens. They offer that they can purchase roof space on some other roof, on public buildings, for instance, and thereby they can you can buy 1 square meter of solar panel on another building, and thereby contribute to the energy shift of the whole city. So there's another platform. So it's just 2 examples of how smart city or smart apps or smart inventions can support the big goals that we have in energy, mobility, and other shifts. 14 seconds.
I'm very impressed with the timing of our speakers today. It's perfect, thank you. And I think we're seeing a theme here around the interconnection of multiple systems in the city, sharing of data. Now we're going to shift back again to look into some of the solution providers who are enabling those capabilities. So I'd ask Jacques van Meegen from LIC Sustainable Solutions to come on and talk a little bit about their approach. Jacques, thank you.
Good afternoon, it's great to be here. My name is Jacques van Meegen. I represent LIC Sustainable Solutions, where LIC stands for Lights Intelligently Connected. So lighting points becoming a smart network in the city. Now, if we look at the theme of the fair here, it's dreaming about smart cities, and that is, of course, very good. But if I picture a dreamer, I'm going around like this, and the chance is present that I will fall off the podium. Now, the other side is that I'm looking for problems and looking for details, get the devil out of the detail, but then again, I will not be able to see you. So I will raise my vision, look into the future, and as some of you drive a motorcycle, you know that wherever you put your focus, you will drive to it. If you focus to a problem, a tree, you will hit the tree. So if you look far away and in the periphery of your sight, you may avoid all the obstacles and the problems, and at the same time enjoy the ride. It takes all kinds of people, and that was said earlier. Everybody is involved, and all kinds of people in the city, because smart cities are in first instance made by smart people, taking smart decisions, motivated to take smart decisions. And if you motivate people to act in a responsible way, what in fact we as a society need, well, the first 10 to 20% of energy are already saved by doing that. But of course, what I said earlier, we have still a long route to go. Huh? We have a lot of problems to solve. And sometimes it looks as if we go 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards, as I discovered in the north of Germany, where Tesla had put 2 loading poles and a great diesel behind it to feed the poles. My general statement would be, my general statement is we have no shortage of energy. We are living on a volcano, we have the sun, we have the rivers, we have all kinds of ways to gather energy. I know that the University of Agriculture in the Netherlands is experimenting with vertical agriculture and let's say getting energy out of the roots of the plants. It's still in a primary stage, but there are initiatives to go with. Now the challenge, if we look at the energy landscape, we see 3 major events. That is, first of all, what was already mentioned, decentral or let's say renewable energy, green energy. We have decentralized production, and we have the introduction of power electronics, which is the cause of a certain measure of pollution within the electrical energy. Now, what the great importance, however we produce our energy, is to use it efficiently and to use as less as possible. And on the other hand, for the energy company, it is most important to make a balance between the demand of energy and the availability of energy. And that becomes, for the energy company, more and more complicated when you have a decentral energy supply, and when you have, because of the green energy, renewable energy, also a discontinuity in the supply. Now, what we, in our belief, need is a network that is extremely scalable, that is reliable and secured to the highest level. Security in the city is of the utmost importance. We have reached a security level in our network, which is on banking level. It is implemented in the hardware and in the software, and the key changes 10 times per second. So the network can be rolled out throughout the city, and the larger the network, the more reliable it becomes. And it is, in fact, implemented in each and every lighting point, whether it's external, so the public space, or whether it is in buildings. So it is one platform what can be intelligently integrated in one management tool, so to use the flexibility of the city, or even to add flexibility to the city, and use that to stabilize the relation between the demand of energy and the availability of energy. These are smart nodes that can put on any lighting point, and when it's powered, it automatically communicates. So it is a self-building mesh network. And it is not only self-building, it is also self-repairing, because let's suppose that one node would fail. You can see that the other nodes can find their way around it, so it will not have any consequences for the functioning of the network. Now, altogether, we have a long way to go. If we focus correctly, we we will be able to enjoy the ride. At the moment, you hear people who are maybe a little pessimistic. I am very optimistic, and especially as I visited last Saturday the Technical University in France, where 700 I added this morning. This is a visual where you, of course, intelligently bring both the public space and the building together, and where we next year will add, with the help of young students, a scenario module, a what-if module. So if you can add scenarios yourself, or you can feed the module with data from the surrounding to take decisions or to suggest decisions to correct situations you would not like. This makes me optimistic. That are, I believe, 160 of the 700 students that graduated at the university in Belfort, and very motivated and very engaged people that will help to bring prosperous and solutions to the world we need. Okay, thank you.
We know we're talking about global issues. We've talked a lot about a variety of European projects, but I'm really pleased now to expand our horizon, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what's happening in Brazil. So I'm very pleased to introduce Mayor Cynthia Ribeiro from the city of Palmas in Brazil, and she's going to tell us something about their projects. Mayor, please.
Olá, bom dia a todos e a todas. Não sei se ele vai me compreender muito bem. No Brasil, acham que falam português, espanhol, porém falamos português. Minha amiga Paula disse que se eu cantar despacitos, todo mundo lá compreender bem. Espero que me fala também. My name is Cynthia Ribeiro, sou prefeita de Palmas, Tocantins, a capital mais bonita do mundo. Quem não conhece ainda, vale a pena fazer uma visita. Quero apresentar para vocês também uma love story, uma grande história de amor. Um pouquinho do que me faço. Aqui quero cumprimentar todos os nossos prefeitos que nos acompanham na delegação da Frente Nacional de Prefeitos, nosso amigo Gilberto e Paulo também, e toda a delegação brasileira. Sejam bem-vindos. Quero apresentar para vocês Palmas. A nossa cidade tem apenas 30 aninhos, muito pequenina, localizada no coração do Brasil, na região norte do país, com aproximadamente 300 mil habitantes. Temos uma renda per capita de aproximadamente $6.000 e temos hoje 100% de cobertura da nossa saúde básica. Aproximadamente 80% das nossas crianças estão em escolas de tempo integral. Foi a primeira capital do Brasil a universalizar a coleta e tratamento de esgoto, assim como também é a primeira capital brasileira a incentivar o uso de energias renováveis. Nós temos um programa na prefeitura, que foi concebido através de uma lei complementar e também de um decreto, onde há um incentivo para que as pessoas possam fazê-la cambiar, a mudança da matriz energética para a energia solar. Nós possibilitamos a mudança de desconto de até 80% do imposto territorial urbano, de até 80% do ITBI, de 25% das outorgas onerosas e até 60% de qualquer tipo de serviço pela prefeitura, para que as pessoas possam fazer essa migração. Aqui, uma estatística de número de pessoas desde que foi criado o programa em 2016 para cá, em 2019, o número de beneficiários e o número de incentivos em números do que a prefeitura, ou do que o poder público ofereceu a estas pessoas. Aí temos uma comparação da cidade de Palmas e outras 2 cidades também muito próximas da região, com relação também sobre o equipamento público e todas as mudanças de matriz energética. Com esse programa, nós podemos implementar na cidade um aumento do número de equipamentos de placa solar, assim como um aumento de empresas, que atualmente são 70 empresas que trabalham no município com isso, e de profissionais nesta nova área, trabalhando com energia solar. Com isso tudo, aproveitamos para apresentar o projeto Palma Solar. O projeto Palma Solar vai levar toda uma mudança de matriz energética para os prédios públicos da Prefeitura de Palmas. A cidade de Palmas tem a maior incidência solar do planeta. E fizemos uma comparação com outras cidades europeias, como Roma, Madrid e Berlim, e vimos nisso uma grande possibilidade de investirmos na nossa cidade, aproveitarmos aquilo que temos como riqueza, o sol, né? Aqui já estou até fazendo a propaganda do verde e amarelo do Brasil e também da incidência solar de Palmas, e como impacto podermos redirecionar todos os recursos públicos que temos hoje para otimizar outros serviços na área em nossa cidade. Os objetivos do projeto do Parque Solar, que é gerar 100% de energia para que os nossos prédios públicos sejam autossuficientes em energia solar, incentivar outras pessoas e a própria população para que possam fazer essa mudança, cambiar essa mudança de matriz energética, e incentivar os serviços. Aqui em Barcelona, a prefeita cuida da zeladoria. Em Brasil, na minha cidade e na cidade de outros prefeitos, cuidamos da saúde, educação, segurança e tantos outros. Muita coisa para fazer com pequeno recurso. E isso faz, um dos outros objetivos que temos com o programa é fazer com que Palmas seja uma cidade cada vez mais inteligente e eficiente. Para esse investimento, utilizamos 50 milhões de reais, aproximadamente 11 milhões de dólares, pelo Finisa, acionado com um banco, com a Caixa Econômica Federal, com um payback de até 4 anos. Geraremos uma economia anual de cerca de 13 mil reais, ou seja, 3 milhões de dólares. Nessa primeira etapa, as nossas unidades escolares, que são as maiores consumidoras de energia, terão 100% da sua energia já no sistema fotovoltaico. E, numa segunda etapa, todos os demais prédios públicos. Fizemos um programa de teste, também já em uma escola, Almirante Tamandaré, e em todos os nossos pontos abrigos de ônibus, foram cerca de 40 durante um ano. E com esse equipamento podemos ver o quanto é eficiente o trabalho da mudança da matriz, que foi paga em apenas um ano. Palmas, com esse investimento do Parque Solar, será a primeira capital do Brasil a ter 100% de energia fotovoltaica, de energia solar em seus prédios públicos. Fica aqui um grande ensinamento também de Eli Lopes Meireles sobre a máxima eficiência na aplicação dos recursos públicos em Palmas. Thank you very much, muito obrigado. Gostaria, se possível, que nós pudéssemos passar um vídeo sobre um pouquinho para que vocês conheçam a nossa capital do calor humano, a capital Palmas. Muito obrigada. Muito graças. Aí? Foi?
No coração do Brasil, no bioma global. Com rios de águas límpidas, Palmas está em vantagem em relação a muitas capitais brasileiras, proporcionando turismo ecológico e lazer a seus moradores. Qualidade de vida e boas oportunidades de negócios são os grandes atrativos desta que já é considerada uma das 20 melhores cidades do Brasil para se viver. Hoje já somos 300 mil habitantes, convivendo em harmonia, valorizando nossa diversidade, promovendo a sustentabilidade e abraçando a todos que nos visitam. Por isso, Palmas é conhecida como a capital do calor humano. Conheça Palmas. Acesse o site www.palmas.to.gov.br.
Muchas gracias.
Right, we're going to now have a discussion session. If you would like to ask any questions, can I ask you please to come up to the microphone, and then I'll give you the opportunity to ask any of the panelists anything from their presentations. While I'm waiting for you to think about that, I'll start. Ines, I think go back to your story. Aspen, has been here for a number of years. It's very well known, I think, in Europe. What's been the biggest lesson, do you think, that's been learned through the project? Or what's been the biggest surprise for those involved in the project?
That's not easy to answer because there are so many surprises and so many lessons we learned. Most of them are actually quite technical on a very detailed level. So it would be a bit boring.
So have most of the issues been, let me put it another way, have most of the issues been technical?
Yeah.
Or have they been behavioral and cultural and in that context?
I guess one of the biggest successes I could mention is the connection of, or the management of all the flexibilities within the building, since there is sector coupling, so one type of energy can be transferred into another type in times of need. And the storages, all the flexible demands can be managed together with the fixed demands and can be sold to the balancing energy market or can be shared with neighbor buildings. And I think that's one of the key issues in energy transition, to combine and to maximize these flexibilities. As we heard earlier, there is enough energy on the planet. The issue is that we have specific times where we need it and other times at the moment where we don't need it. So we can either adapt the production or the demand into a way that this fits.
I mean, that is interesting because that was one of the big sort of goals of the project, to understand whether you could do that. So the fact that you can is really good news. I mean, actually, perhaps Alex, because a lot of the work you do is in a similar vein.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as the issues when cities try to deploy those type of solutions?
Yeah, I think I agree with what they said and what Jaak was also telling before. I believe we are being always so convinced that the economy is based on scarcity. And as he said, energy, it's not scarce. We have a lot of energy. We're just learning how we can afford to collect this energy and transform it. And we also have to remember, I believe, that energy is fundamental for anything we do since the Industrial Revolution. So any action we are doing, we need energy. And if we really manage to have a governance of this, which is involving making really a collaboration of all the stakeholders and the players, I think we can overcome the issues we are seeing. And I believe this is the thing I've learned in these many years working in this sector, is that actually there is a will. There are municipalities willing to transform. And there are companies which are also understanding how they can help. But still, I think somehow we lack a bit of regulation. We lack to have regulation, taking the same step. And I think we are just learning now that this sort of models have to be like Las Palmas, they have to be implemented more easily and faster.
So you're very optimistic. Ines's project is proving that it's possible. How does it work in a real city, Anna? I mean, how challenging was it to get the platform where you've brought together the different people, the EnerGS platform? What was the challenge of getting that working?
It wasn't that challenging because it is something that people where they see their advantage because it really serves people's needs. It also serves the city's needs. And I think these are the good examples where you can like benefit a lot of people or help a lot of people. If we would talk about mobility, it would be much more critical because there you cannot satisfy everyone. Here you can show people with this energies or also with the other one, you can show people how they can contribute really to, I call it the good aim, how they really can do something to help to deal with climate change.
So you've set the right goal and the right and Ines talked about communication as well. That really made it possible to do that project. People understood what they were contributing to with the platform. Yeah, that's great.
I think it's very important to involve people.
Yeah.
Also, talking about smart city, it's easy to say, yes, smart city is about smart citizens. It's very true, and I think it's very important to involve people and to give them the opportunity and the possibility to really do something or being able to share something with these big goals.
Yeah, that's great. And Jack, you were talking a little bit about that, and you cut short a little bit on the scenario piece, but that's obviously also something to help people engage. Perhaps you just say a little bit more about that.
Well, I think that that mainly technology is to support the people in the way they live in general. So that also goes for how you deal with energy and how you deal with the needs of our society. And that was also one of the goals in developing the platform, that it will be a platform which is easily implemented, which is affordable and sustainable, of course, open to any other smart city application, because we like our clients to stay with us because we do a good job and not because they don't have another choice.
And the mayor, your video did a great job of selling Parmas. I mean, a beautiful place. Great project. What's your big challenge to deliver on your vision?
O grande desafio que temos, na realidade, são as pessoas entenderem que uma cidade inteligente ela é feita por pessoas e que essas pessoas precisam trabalhar juntas. La academia, la governança, la poder público, para que possamos ampliar os nossos horizontes e termos políticas públicas efetivas. Não políticas públicas de governo, políticas públicas de Estado, que fiquem para as próximas gerações. E isso nós só conseguimos juntos e realmente com pessoas que sabem que a cidade é um organismo vivo.
Okay, I think I understood enough to understand the challenges.
Esse é um grande desafio.
Do we have any questions from the audience? If you could use the mic, please.
I would like to ask Alex Delia. I understood that Prosume has built an energy platform and that you're working with various actors, utilities, TSOs, prosumers. Now, you mentioned the blockchain is adopted within the environment you've created. I'd like you to spend maybe a minute just helping me to understand in which way the blockchain comes into play as a technology in the model you've built.
Hey, thank you for the question. As it was presented also in the previous panel, the use of the blockchain comes into certified data in time mostly. So we really treat it like a database, the centralized database. And beside the consensus method, which is something that comes in place when you really work with public blockchains, if you use the tools for administering, for the governance of the city, then these tools are needed for managing how this energy is moving, how the players are interacting in the system. And so this is the way we use it. We integrate and we try to actually come to the edge where the system is really decentralized. If you want to have a resilient grid, a resilient infrastructure, you need to have it autonomous. And that means you really need to have distributed intelligence. And that's how we are implementing it, is by placing bits of software inside meters, inside the domotic devices, around in the city, more or less.
Any other questions? Yes, lady, if you could use the mic, please.
Yes, a question to Jack, because you were talking about that decentralized systems have the disadvantage of, well, what did you say exactly? Maybe you already get my point. The disadvantage of not, you knew what you were saying?
No, I think the network what we use is a distributed intelligence. It's a mesh network, so when one node gets an instruction, it will automatically pass that instruction through to the other nodes, and when it comes back, it says, okay, it's in the network, I'm finished.
So your system, compared to the other system of yours, for example, is a centralized system, right? So you have different nodes, but it all comes together, is combined in one.
Well, no, it's not centralized, because then you are talking about some kind of a hierarchy. And within a hierarchy, you get, how do you call it?
Point of failures.
Yeah, then that's too much. No, this is a distributed intelligence where the nodes constantly exchange their information. And they can, of course, receive assignments, or they can communicate with actuators, or in fact all kinds of smart city applications. It is to the wishes of the client in what tempo or they wish to explore or to extend the smart city applications. So it's in fact we offer a great range of doors, and it is for the municipality to see which door they want to open.
Yeah, if I can add something to her question, maybe to help understand, it's not different. What we are seeing right now is infrastructures are becoming digitized, so they need connectivity. That's what they provide with the mesh networks. Energy needs to be distributed and beside being transformed. And all of this needs a kind of governance model. So what they're doing is like working on the distribution of information, then you have it of energy, and on top, I would say, we have what we're doing, for example, so the governance of it. So these are systems which actually should and can work together. I don't know if this...
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We are out of time, but go on, one quick question, I think, because I'd love the panel to have a chance. You had a question? Gentleman at the front? Yes, please. If you can make it very quick.
Yes, just a quick one. It's for Alex. I've recently heard that the power consumption for Bitcoin mining, blockchain essentially, is roughly the same amount of power being consumed in the whole Africa. So the quick question is this the power consumed in order to run the blockchain is really significant, and how this affects the whole operation of green sustainable grids?
Yeah, I think your question is a question that goes around a lot. Actually, you are referring to public blockchains and to blockchains which are using what they call the proof of work method to establish the consensus, and that's something that requires lots of computation, so energy from cards, from CPUs, and whatever. We are treating, as we said, blockchain for what it is, a distributed ledger, and for that we use also permissioned ledger, not public. And the point is you have to use the right technology for the specific needs, and energy needs to be sustainable.
And I think I'd take from that, we've had some great stories about the success of technology. I'm really impressed with what Zurich and Austria and Aspen are doing, and also Palma. The things are coming together. We can do this. Technologies are there. The cities are overcoming the cultural barriers and the organizational issues. But then there are new challenges around blockchain and artificial intelligence. So it's going to continue to be very exciting. I'm sure the speakers will stay around if you want to ask them questions. If you want to follow up on more details, please do. I'm sorry the time we are out of time, but you could talk to them afterwards. Please join me in thanking all our panelists. I think the presentations were excellent, and it really shows where we are in our conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
So please stay on stage a second. I just want to wrap up very quickly and thank all of you, all of the wonderful speakers, but also all of you here in the room for this most insightful and interesting session. I certainly learned a lot, and I hope all of you did as well. We discussed some of the challenges and opportunities of the energy transition in cities, but we also discussed with every one of us, every citizen can also play a key role. So in this spirit, I would like to thank you again all. I wish you a good lunch and a very good rest of the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.